I want to welcome all of you to the start of the second half of the 2013-2014 NYU Reynolds Social Entrepreneurship in the 21st Century Speaker Series. My name is Gabriel Brodbar. I'm the Executive Director of the NYU Reynolds Program in Social Entrepreneurship, and I'm really thrilled to be welcoming all of you to tonight's event, The Power of And, with Kind Bar founder and CEO Daniel Lubetzky, and business journalist and author Chana Schoenberger. I'm particularly excited for this event for two main reasons. And the first main reason, I love these Kind bars. This one is actually dark chocolate, nuts, and sea salt. It's one of my favorite. Nobody paid me to say that. I feel really good about myself when I eat these, and I think you should eat them and feel good about yourself as well. But the second reason is really much more important. I think Daniel has a lot of valuable things to share with those of us who are trying to live in a more sustainable way through how we make a living. To begin with, Daniel really does lead by example. He's a dyed-in-the-wool social entrepreneur whose deep desire to make the world a better place is truly baked into the DNA of every for-profit. That wasn't a purposeful pun, by the way. For every for-profit, not-for-profit, and this is actually his trademark term, not only for-profit venture that he creates. And this kind of honesty in intention and consistency of character, I think, is so important to social change work. Now, while it's very necessary, it's not sufficient. And that honesty of intention really needs to be combined with an ability to creatively imagine and execute one's vision. And I think Daniel has a lot of things to share on that front as well. And that's what tonight's talk is really all about. It's how to unleash that creative thinking and frame our goals in terms of and instead of or, so we might be in a better position to achieve goals that at first pass seem incompatible. And so we're talking about goals such as profit and purpose, commerce and justice, being kind to consumers and being kind to employees and being kind to the planet. So please join me in warmly welcoming to the NYU Reynolds stage Daniel Lubetzky and Chana Schoenberger.
Hi, everybody. So just to kick off with a couple of questions, Daniel, do you want to just start by describing the organizations that you run and founded?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming in, especially on the, like Gabe said, of this type of weather. Before I forget, I want to thank Gabe and Ronnie and Rachel for putting this together. Thank you so much for your work. And Juliana and our Kind team that's with us. Thank you so much. So I'll do it chronologically. I founded right after law school a company called PeaceWorks that uses business as a force for bringing neighbors together. So it's a manufacturer of specialty food products that has done joint ventures in different parts of the world. Our flagship ventures in the Middle East between Palestinians, Turks, Egyptians to some degree, Israelis, Israeli Jews, Israeli Arabs, or Palestinian citizens of Israel, and using the forces of the market to shatter cultural stereotypes, to cement relations between people, and to create delicious, healthy foods that are made through cooperative ventures. That's PeaceWorks. The second venture that I founded is called OneVoice. It's a non-for-profit, the first one, PeaceWorks, is a business with a social mission or a not only for-profit. OneVoice is in the non-profit world, but it does use a lot of innovative entrepreneurial mechanisms to awaken Israelis and Palestinians to seize back the agenda for conflict resolution. It's a movement that has over 600,000 signatory members, Israeli, Palestinian, and some international. Its engine of power is students like you in Israel and Palestine across 28 chapters all the way from Gaza to Tel Aviv, Ramallah, small villages like Salfit, refugee camps, large campuses. And it has a very interesting board of advisors and directors from dignitaries and diplomats like Martin Indyk, Dennis Ross, Stuart Eisenstadt, to celebrities like Natalie Portman, to musicians like Paul McCartney, to foremost business leaders and Palestinian and Israeli dignitaries, all of whom are joining as one voice against extremism and for a two-state solution to amplify the voice of moderates and help them propel their politicians towards an agreement. And chronologically, the third venture I started is the one that we're going to talk the most about, called Kind, which is a company its value proposition is to do the kind thing for your body, for your taste buds, and for your world. So kind to your body means it's healthful ingredients that are nutritionally rich that you can see and pronounce. I love the way Gabe said that you feel good about yourself when you eat them, because that's part of why we created it. But it's also kind to your taste buds because it's delicious, and it's also kind to your world, which may also be why Gabe said that he feels good about when he eats them. And in terms of kind to your world, our mission is to try to inspire kindness, and we do it in a lot of fun, crazy ways. And sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't, but it's been a big evolution over the last 10 years. And the fourth venture, I don't run it. I co-founded it with actually someone that's also an NYU professor, at least partly, or used to be. Paul Van Zyl and Christy Kaler and I started a company called Mayette, which is a luxury apparel brand. There's actually a story that just came out on New York Magazine this week about it, which is trying to reinvent the way luxury apparel is done with real progressive ethical work done in India, in Peru, in Kenya, bringing also Kukuyos, Luaos, and Maasai tribe members to work together side by side and to rediscover the craftsmanship from people in developing places and help elevate their craftsmanship to this product selling Barney's. So it's interesting.
And the clothes are really gorgeous, which is the important point.
You can see. No, I'm just joking. I'm terrible in clothing. Fortunately, I have no involvement in that day-to-day management of that company.
You're not the spokesmodel for Mayette, no.
Not yet, fortunately for them.
So in the intro, Gabe talked a little bit about the and philosophy. So this is a really wacky idea, that you can do two things without making compromises. Isn't being a grown-up making choices?
Yes, and
tell us how it works.
The value proposition that we have at Kind, that we discovered, that's the way we think at the company, and we started trying to extract how and why it is that oftentimes you do need to make choices, but more often than not, these are false paradigms and false choices. And you think you need to take this path, but often these are, compromises that you're reaching because by its nature, your brain is an efficient mechanism, and it teaches you those shortcuts and those paths to just get to a solution faster. But oftentimes, the assumptions that you had made may not have been true anymore, or may have never been true, and the generalizations you made may not hold anymore, or there just may be a harder way to get things on where you can have your cake and eat it too. It doesn't hold always, but in the case of Kind, the way the company started, I had started PeaceWorks before. I was staying very, very long hours, sometimes 16, 18-hour days, working, skipping lunch or skipping dinner, or traveling a lot all over, and I was very frustrated with my own snacks. And I wanted to create a product that was both healthy and tasty and wholesome and convenient and economically sustainable and socially impactful. All of those ands, to some degree, seem difficult to achieve, and they're actually hard to achieve. It's not easy. The and philosophy is not about taking the easy path. It's about taking sometimes a harder path, but that in the long term pays off more. So wholesome and convenient, there are products that are convenient that can last a long time. A Twinkie will survive nuclear disasters, but it's not wholesome. And then there are products that are wholesome, like fruit, but it's very, very fragile. So can you create something that can travel with you, that can go on the road with you, but that you feel that it's really nourishing your body? And so what Kind was, its value proposition was to create something that would be a healthy snack on the go, or when you're skipping lunch or dinner, or would you need an extra snack to hold you over. Same with taste and health, body and taste buds. We wanted to find a product that was delicious and helpful and where you didn't need to sacrifice one or the other. And it's actually very hard to find that right compromise, because if you steer too much in one side, it might feel very helpful, but people might not like to eat it. If you go too much on the indulgence side, you might not be helping your body. And it takes a little extra work to get the right balance, but if you get it, I think you get rewarded by loyalty from your consumers and et cetera. And same with, what I liked about the way Gabe introduced those is about how he talked about how we try to integrate the social and the business missions into the DNA, and so that they are living at peace with one another and actually supporting and advancing one another. So in everything we do, we try to find ways that we can advance our commercial and our social objectives. I can talk about the Kind Awesome cards if it's not too early, Juliana.
Let's come back to that.
Fine. I'll surprise you later.
You've said that it's a bad idea to rely on your mission alone to sell products. That just because something is good for the world or has a positive message doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a good business. Why not? Why wouldn't everybody want to buy a sun-dried tomato spread that was made by Israelis and Arabs together?
I mean, I learned this the hard way. My first company right out of law school, I was clueless about the food business or the skincare business or any of these businesses that I first dabbled in 93, 94. And I was so passionate about bringing Arabs and Israelis together that in my initial efforts, I really talked about the mission. The way the company started, I wanted to try, actually, before I went into the food business, I tried skincare products, Dead Sea products that were made through cooperation by Bedouins and Jews in Israel. And I ordered, a little bit of each of, give me 7 of these. And there were 7 varieties of soaps. Give me 500 of each of these and 500 of that. And I'll try selling gift baskets for Mother's Day. This was 1993, 1994, and see how it goes. And one day I was living in a studio apartment that was really, really, really tiny. And they rang the bell and I'm like, what's up? It's like, your product is here. I'm like, oh yeah, just bring it up. And they're like, I'm sorry, sir, I don't think you understand. And I came downstairs to pick up the product, and it was a giant container, like a truckload of product, because I was so dumb that because it was only 500 times 7, whatever, I figured it was just gonna go on the side. But it was like, it actually was a lot of volume. So I had to recruit a couple people from the street literally to help me bring the stuff up to my apartment. Here was my bed, and behind me there was a stack of boxes, and on the side there was boxes, and in front was boxes. And if I needed to go to the bathroom, I had to like walk around like this through the thing. And every time I needed to get some cereal or something, I had to hesitate because I took more calories to get to the kitchen.
So you needed a nutritionally rich bar at this point.
Right. No, but Mother's Day was coming, and I was certain that this mission, like, think about it, you're bringing Arabs and Israelis to work together to make these skincare products. So I took a few ads in neighborhood newspapers that nobody reads anyway, but I didn't know that back then. And I talked so much about the mission, about how important it was, and almost as if I just had to do it. I just, at the very bottom in a footnote, explained what the products were, but it was very mission-driven. And this is an analogy from the beginning mistakes. In many other ways, I made the same mistake of putting mission first. But what happened is that I was a little bit worried that Mother's Day was coming, and I only had one person to help me pack all these gift baskets and send them out to mothers who would love to be given this gift of peace as well as beautiful skin. And Mother's Day came, and Mother's Day went, and we got a total of 3 phone calls. One was an AT&T operator trying to offer me an 800 number. Another one was an accountant that didn't realize there was nothing to account for. And a third one I thought was the one consumer, but it turned out it was like a competitor that also had skincare products and just wanted to like get a sense of what I was doing. So I sold nothing. And like that mistake, I made many, many mistakes when I was just so proud of my mission that I was putting it forward. And it's very dangerous. I know there's a lot of studies by PR firms that want to be hired that highlight that social missions drive your business. I personally am very skeptical of that. I think social missions can give you loyalty from your consumers, can give you and your team meaning, can change the world. There's a lot of good reasons to have a social mission. They can distinguish you from others. They can inspire your team to work harder than anything. They can change the world. They can create more goodwill and loyalty. They can generate PR. There's a lot of things, but what they won't do is create frequent purchases. Maybe someone will buy it once because of pity, but if you want to create a sustainable business, the product needs to stand on its merit and needs to win on its merit, and it is, above all, it has to fit the value proposition that the consumer is looking for. So in the case of a Kind Bar, it's the healthiest, tastiest product out there, and the vast majority of our consumers don't even know about our social mission. And as they find out, then they become even more loyal and more passionate about our brand. But we don't want our social mission to overshadow that we recognize that the primary function of ours is to make a product that's nourishing to your body and that's delicious. And
it's all about the bars.
It's we do say do the kind thing for your body, your taste buds, and your world. We do think that making this a better world and kindness is a critical thing. What is our value proposition for the company? And I can talk more about how we do that and what we do there. But it starts with body and taste buds. It doesn't start with world, because if you start with world, I don't want people to ever think that we're a charity and that people should buy it because they want to do me a favor. I want them to know that this is the best product out there.
So tell us, this is a loaded question, tell us how you feel about cause marketing.
Well, depends how you define it, but as a general thing, the word cause marketing causes me a lot of pause, because it seems to me like the gimmicky thing that companies do, where like, oh, let's market based on a cost. Let's attach a cause and the cause of the day. And if there's no soul in what you're doing, I actually think it can harm a business. I think there's perfectly fine brands that don't have a social mission, and as long as they're authentic, the consumers will connect with them and what they are and what they stand for. And it's more dangerous for a brand that's inauthentic to claim that it has a social mission. Don't misunderstand me. I do think that in the future, more and more companies are going to recognize their responsibility to make this a better world and how market forces can drive that. And us as consumers are going to demand that more and more. So I do think that the trend is for companies to do that. But the companies that will really win in that space are the ones that have an authentic mission. And cause marketing or corporate social responsibility sometimes concerns me, because sometimes it just sounds like people are doing it to help the bottom line, and they think it's the right thing or the politically correct thing to attach a social mission to it. And I just think consumers are extraordinarily sophisticated, and if they smell that it's not authentic, they don't give the brand credit. They might actually discredit it. So that's what causes me pause about cause marketing.
So is there a reason why a founder shouldn't just start a company, make a ton of money, start his own foundation, and through his foundation just support whatever causes he feels like? Why have a mission for the business at all?
Well, I think that's where all the fun is in reinventing the world and finding ways that you can, through the ant philosophy, do those things at once. First, it's just more fun to do things differently. But also, as a human being, I have 4 children. I really do want for my children to have a better future. And I sincerely believe, I'll talk on the social side and then I'll talk on the business side. I sincerely believe that the challenges that we're going to face as humanity in the coming decades, and you're younger than I, so you're going to have more of those challenges, and my children even more. I mean, climate change, nuclear proliferation, resource scarcity, we're just scratching the surface of the problems that we're going to encounter as humanity. And how are you going to tackle those problems? The biggest force today that permeates our lives the most is the private sector, is the business forces, the market forces. In the 15th century, the church was an organizing institution. And then in the 16th, 17th, 19th century, the nation state rose in power and government was an organizing institution. But in the 19th century, with the Industrial Revolution, in the 20th century, it's become more about the market forces. And today, it's all about the power of the individual and power of the markets to make change. So if you're able to tap that, if you're able to channel those market forces to do both good and well, and to run a business that also has a social mission, then society's better off, your children will be better off, and you are going to run a business that's going to be more effective. And I do think that, I don't know if it's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or 30 years from now, but there will be a point where businesses that have a true, sincere social mission in their DNA, imbued in them, and that it reconciles with it, and it's not just authentic, but it helps advance one another, are going to become much more prevalent and perhaps will become the norm as opposed to the exception, just because that's what our consumers and our society are going to crave and need. So I'll just give you an example of what I mean. Like PeaceWorks, the first business I started, it's not a very big business, but it's a beautiful example of how it works, because the more that we're getting people to cooperate and make products, the more that the social mission and the business mission are advanced. When people buy our products, they're causing more people to work with each other and to foster those economic ventures. So it's very much tied. The business and the social impact are tied with generating those jobs that attract people. Now, note how I don't say ever, by you buying our sun-dried tomato spread, you're going to make peace in the Middle East. And I think it's another thing that's very dangerous, how people overstate their missions and exaggerate their impact. And I think consumers can get very turned off. It's not greenwashing, but I guess social washing or whatever. Like if you, companies that are not more humble about their impact, I think can end up, there can be a big backlash against them. So I do feel very proud about what we do to try to make this a kinder world. I hope we get to talk about it, but it's a small contribution. It's a small token to try to be a responsible citizen to make this a better world. And I think it's important to have the humility to recognize that when you're engaged in this space.
So you have this term, not only for profit, and you apply this to your businesses, which are real companies. They're not nonprofits. Can you explain what the difference is?
Between what and what?
Between a nonprofit, a business, and a not only for profit business.
So the way our legal system was created, they separated not profit organizations, non-governmental organizations that are not to run businesses or be run for profit, and business corporations or LLCs that are designed to derive a profit. And there's a tension between those, because what if you could have a business corporation that wants to make money but also wants to do good? And so that's why we created the term not only for profit as a business that has a social mission. This was, I don't know, 10 years before they created the B corporations. So now in some states, they're actually trying to validate that it's okay for you to want to derive a profit and have other goals besides deriving a profit, also making this a better world. So that's...
Okay. In terms of the AND philosophy, let's talk about some ways that you use this philosophy at Kind. Can you talk about why you never fire people unless they steal something?
I asked Chana to come up with provocative ways of asking the questions, and I think she did a great job.
We can go back to the vanilla versions if you'd like.
No, this is great. So what Chana is meaning is that there was an article in the Corner Office that I talked a little bit about, in New York Times, about how the concept of firing is so antiquated. And if you think about it, and I have a friend that works at a big corporation that was at that company for 10 years. And just a couple of weeks ago, she called me and she told me she was so sad because she got promoted to be president of another company. So she went to the person that she reports to and let them know that she's going to do this and offered to do a proper transition of a few months to make sure that she transfers over her responsibilities to new people. And the person that she reports to said, get out, and showed her out the door, took her stuff, and changed the codes on the thing. So basically walked her out, escorted her out. Now, there is a time to do that. It's if somebody's stealing or doing something unlawful or really causing harm to the company or threatening somebody physically, you should escort them out. If somebody's doing something really bad, you should do. But if you have had a person that's worked for 10 years, that's given their lives to the company, and for whatever reason they've reached the decision they need to move on, there should be a better way. Now, in my company, I hope, certainly my direct reports would never do that to me. Right, Juliana? So any team member that joins me, they have to give me at least 2 years' notice, which is a significant commitment. But I won't hire any direct report unless they give me 2 years' notice. And what does that mean? That if they decide they want to go to law school or they want to switch careers or they want to move. Now, you know, if they get married and they need to be deployed to Afghanistan, okay, then I can, there might be some exceptions where we'll only require 22 months notice. But in general, the principle is that people have to, like the president of our company, John Lay, he's a phenomenal mentor. He's got 30 years of experience. He's just an invaluable partner. And he's the yin to my yang, like, sounding very lovely. My wife's going to get jealous. He's the yin to my yang, John. But it's a very strong partnership between John and I. I trust him with everything, and he trusts me with everything. And him knowing that I'm not going to ever replace him, and that he's not ever going to leave, and that if the company were to grow to such a degree that I felt we need to do changes, I would give him so much visibility. I would over-communicate. If he felt that he wants to retire, he would over-communicate. And his responsibility, in exchange for my undying loyalty, is that he will not leave the company without giving me that 2-year notice, identifying his replacement, and transitioning and replacing that person. Now, in a job like that, as the president of our company, of a 300-plus person company, I really do take those 2 years notice very seriously, because it will require grooming that person, training him, and all that. In exchange for that, I don't worry about John not being around, and I'm not ever threatened, and I'm not ever worried, and I can continue rewarding him and giving him more and more and more responsibility. Same with Juliana, who just got promoted to chief of staff, because the relationship is such that you trust your people. Now, even at a situation where the person might need a little bit more flexibility, because the person, like, I'm not saying that if you want to potentially switch careers, you have to give your employer, any person that interviews you, you have to let them know, hey, I can't join you for 2 years. No, the way it works is you let us know, hey, I'm planning to make a transition. I'm thinking about it. And then you take your time, you start then interviewing. But in my opinion, why should you start interviewing with someone without letting us know? If you have an environment for adults, we're not gonna, if you're not doing a great job, we're going to make sure that we communicate with you and we give you the chance to improve. And if for any reason this is not the fit, we're going to try to help you move into another department. And if at the end of the road things don't work out, we're going to let you start interviewing for places while you help us find your replacement, and do it in a very adult way where both sides are working together, the and philosophy at work, where both people are better off, because it's much easier to land a job when you're currently employed. And we can act as your reference, and we can be earnest and transparent. Now, this is, again, if somebody's stealing or doing something wrong, you have to terminate them. But in the overwhelming amount of cases, people are of goodwill, and you hire slow to make sure that they're the right people. So if things are not working out, often it's because the manager didn't communicate properly what the expectations were, or things have changed. So you owe it to your team to have the loyalty to give them a lot of visibility, and they owe that to you also, not just living from one day to the other. A lot of the reason why this 2-week notice environment is because people are scared of one another. The employee is scared that if they give notice, they will suddenly be demotivated and they won't be given opportunities for growth. In our company, if you give us that visibility, we actually promote you along the way. We actually give you parting bonuses. We treat you really well, because we want to recognize that the right way to, like, we have almost no attrition, almost nobody leaves kind. But if anybody wants to leave, if they do it with the elegance and professionalism, we right now have 5 people in the process of doing that. One wanted to take care of their children, but they gave us a 5-month notice and they're replacing themselves. The other one is moving because she got married and she's going to move somewhere else, but we found a way that she can work with us out of that somewhere else, change the job. And so if you're open and communicate, and even if the person wants to leave, you cannot serve as a reference for them, or if they want to go to law school, you can write a letter of recommendation. Isn't that so much better than them surprising you and like, hey, I'm leaving in 2 weeks, and they had to do it the hard way by hiding from you? So that's a long way to answer why we don't fire people.
So it's like covenant marriage. You can't get rid of each other, basically.
Thank you. You're applauding her saying covenant marriage, because I don't know what that means, but it was why we're not. But seriously, what I would love is that 5, 10 years from now, the way we think about this has changed. And I don't think that's too difficult a jump in terms of us visualizing that 5 or 10 years ago, if we start having this conversation, the term "you're fired" it's such an ugly term.
It's very Donald Trump.
Fire. Why do you need
You're
to
fired?
Yeah, exactly. Why do you need to fire anybody? Sometimes you do it. Somebody deserves it. But in the overwhelming amount of times, you need to work with each other to find out the right path.
So do you have any advice along those lines for people who don't work for enlightened companies like Kind? If I work for a regular company...
Stay quiet. Stay under the rain.
I would love for my boss to treat me that way, but he's not going to. And if I go to him and I say, you know, hey, boss man, I would like to go to grad school, or I don't like working in the widget industry, I want to work for the thingamajiggy industry, he will
maybe
give
forward
me a
them the
cardboard
corner,
box.
forward them subtly in an anonymous way, the corner office article that they interview with talks about the philosophy, and then show up the next day like, oh, let me talk to you. No, I actually, it's a good question. I don't know how you handle it because it is a deep entrenched problem. I do think more and more companies are waking up to the way that there's a third way, that there's an and way to do things. But I do say that, I do recognize that today the prevalent way is where you have to give 2 weeks notice, because if you give 6 months notice, they might say, oh no, I don't want you 6 months, you're out in 2 weeks, or here's your paycheck, get out. So it puts the employee in a very difficult situation where they want to do the kind thing and the professional thing, but they can't because then they'll get screwed. So I don't have a perfect answer other than engaging in that conversation deeply and often until we change the paradigm, and it becomes silly to do it that way.
This is a good segue into do the kind thing. Do you want to talk about the kind movement?
Sure. I don't know if that's a good segue, but...
Well, you said do the kind thing.
Oh, okay. A literally good segment.
Yes.
So what's interesting about inspiring kindness is it's actually very hard to make a kind bar. It's easy to make a bar with fruits and nuts, but it's very hard to make a kind bar that has a 15-month shelf life, that tastes the way it tastes, where the sum is greater than the individual components. And we've had a lot of competitors try, and so far nobody has all the imitators, it's really not the same product. But it's far, far harder to inspire kindness. Not because we don't live in a kind world. I think people in their nature are very kind. But kindness is this magical force of nature, right? It's one of the only net happiness aggregators that exist in life. What does this nerd term mean? A net happiness aggregator for us means that both people can be better off, that you can create more happiness just by you being kind to one another. So if you see a total stranger and you just go out of the way to do an unexpected kind act towards them, or you just reward someone, a friend, with something really, really nice, the more that you go out of your way, the more that it's unexpected, the more that it's a stranger, the more that that person feels like, wow, that was so nice, and the more that you feel good about yourself. When I help that lady, I look for those opportunities more and more now because I'm so thinking about this issue. But you help that lady carry that stroller, you feel good about yourself. You did something nice. You carry a bag for a lady up the subway, you feel good. And they feel like, oh, that was nice, you know. So the problem is that the reason it's so magical is there's no ulterior motives, there's no agendas or wrong incentives. So you can't say, hey, be kind to the person, do a kind act, and I'll give you a kind bar. It's disgusting. It doesn't feel authentic. It will destroy the purity of the act and with it the magic that comes from it if you are creating perverse incentives for somebody to be kind to one another. It has to come out of the heart. So how do you inspire kindness when you can't, you know, create those direct incentives? So we've played with it over the last 10 years. And interestingly, when we started the company, the way we saw our mission, and it was also a function of our limited size, we felt that the way we were going to make this a kinder world was by just ourselves being the protagonists, us doing kind acts to our consumers and to our buyers. So at trade shows, we would give massages, or at a Whole Foods store, we would give massages, or drive people to their cars. And it was almost like stunts that we did. When it really started to become really cool is when we started figuring out how to inspire others to join us in doing that kind of act. So the first manifestation of that were these black cards that we created that we would surprise somebody with a kind act, and let's say that you were at a coffee shop, we would buy you a coffee and a kind bar and say, you know, you've been kinded, pass it on. And then you take this card and you could go online and track where the card had traveled. Some of them reached China, some India, some the United Kingdom. And you could pass on the act of kindness. So you had a person reporting that they paid for the toll booth of the person behind them. And in the meantime, the person behind was like, who's this freak? It's a stalker. It's like, no, sir. It's they gave me the card. Oh, that's really neat. And that, by the way, those cards were often used also by students, like when they made moves on a man or a woman that they wanted to date, and they're like, no, I'm not a stalker. I'm just giving you a kind card.
Stalker.
Yeah, stalker. But the problem with those cards is that they were linear. So if one person stopped the chain would die. And we did a bunch of experiments with them, but it was a nice project. But the next thing we did was called Do the Kind Thing, or Kind Tuesdays, where the last Tuesday of the month, we would send a mission to our community. We have about 300,000 people in the community of kindaholics, and we would send them a mission, like, for example, on a hot summer month, give a cold beverage to a construction worker or someone that's working outside. Or write a note of thanks to a woman who made a difference in your life. Different missions. And then if enough people in the community reported doing the kind act, it would trigger a big kind act for those who needed it most. So one month, we reunited war veterans with the wounded warriors, wounded veterans with their families. Another month, we helped clean up a beach. Another month, we gave thousands of pairs of shoes to homeless kids. Another month, school supplies. And it was a very neat project also, but it was hard because we were centrally deciding what was a big kind act, and we were sending signature things that sometimes felt artificial in your daily life, how you could do the kind act. So what we did now, what is in the process of being launched right now, it's only been in month 2, but we've had over 200 submissions, is now any of you can go to our website. We have a few domains, but you can go to kindsnacks.com/world or kindmovement.com. I don't remember if there's a couple of, I don't know if we own them yet, but you can go to our website and load up your mission, whatever you care about it. If you want to fight cancer, if you want to do a shelter for puppies, if you want to help provide an operation for this person, anybody can. You don't need to be a nonprofit organization. Any human being can share their cause. And then the cause that generates the most kind acts in its honor is the one that we adopt. So now you can also choose how you're going to do your kind act. You can say what you've done or what you're going to do in honor of that cause. And
it's like a niceness popularity contest.
A niceness popularity contest?
So who's the most popular?
I prefer the way Gabe was describing it.
I'm not getting involved in this.
So no, it's what inspires more kindness process. And the other thing we're doing is we came up with these cards called, I guess we'll call them kind awesome cards, where if we notice that someone does a really nice act, like you're sitting in the subway and someone stands up for another person, or this, was it you that mentioned to me the bus driver that?
Yeah.
So can you share that?
Oh, sure. I'm
going to interview her.
Right. So I was on the, M4 bus recently, and there was a guy who got on the bus after me. He was a young delivery man, and he had a dolly with a hand truck with a whole bunch of packages, and he was really struggling to get it on, and they were falling everywhere. And the bus driver, held the bus for him as he got on, and then he said to her, after the bus started, where do I transfer for such and such a bus? And she told him, and we all rode in silence. And then when we got to that place, as we're approaching the intersection, she says, "That's your bus waiting at the corner. I'm going to pull in front of him so he can't get by. You go out the back door and you run." And she did. And no one ever does that in New York. It was amazing. And he made the bus. You could see him get on.
So she blocked the other bus.
She blocked the other bus so the guy could make the bus. So I said to her as I got off, that was really nice of you. And she just lit up with this smile, like someone had finally noticed that she was being a good Samaritan.
But you didn't have one of these.
I did not have a kind awesome card.
So she had one of these. What we do is if somebody does a kind act to you, or you notice that they do a kind act for somebody else, you just give them a kind awesome card and say, that was really kind of you. And in appreciation for your kind awesomeness, you can go to the website, enter this individualized code, and then we send you a couple kind bars, plus what people appreciate the most is another one of these cards for you to pass it on. So you do something really kind, we give you a kind awesome card, you download and get your bars, but then you get another card, and then the next time you spot somebody that deserves it, you give them the Kind Awesome card. And we're going to invite all of you to join us in this experiment. So we're going to give out Kind Awesome cards for all of you. And don't cheat, don't keep them to yourselves. And don't hold the bar so high. What's actually hard is to find the right moment, the meaningful moment where somebody's worth celebrating. But if you hold the bar too high and just keep it in your pockets, it doesn't do anybody any good. So use them, celebrate somebody. And by the way, this is for us what's a really cool way of merging our marketing, because what are we doing here? We really are authentically celebrating kindness and inspiring it in a very authentic way, because you celebrate the person after they did it. But we're also letting people try Kind bars, because a lot of them will have never tried a Kind bar, and the way they interact with the brand, so it's a way to sample the product in a much more impactful way.
Do you have advice for budding social entrepreneurs? How can one become the next Daniel Lubetzky?
Can I give, I want to start with a different piece of advice. My different piece of advice first is think deeply about what gives you meaning, first and foremost. Life is too short for you not to do that. And in today's day and age, we rush through life, and any minute that we have left, we're checking our iPhones or our smart, it's like incredible. Where was this? We had a board meeting, and when there was a break, everybody was on their phone. Nobody was interacting with one another. 10 years ago, when these things didn't exist, you had to interact with people. And it's so important that you interact with yourself. So my biggest piece of advice is make sure that you're communicating with yourself. There's a talk on YouTube that I gave at Trinity University about this topic. You can do the Trinity University, Daniel Lubetzky, and you'll get it. Which talks more deeply about it, but I think it really is very, very important that you understand yourself and you understand what gives you meaning, because if you don't understand that, how are you going to maximize your potential? And I firmly believe that if you pursue something that you really believe in, whether it's a social enterprise or something else, that you're going to just have a better life regardless of the external measure of success. It's so much secondary. I mean, I'm very fortunate that Kind has done so well in the last 5 or 10 years. And I'm happy that I can pay for my kids' school and stuff. But I had just as much meaning and fun when PeaceWorks was a fledgling business of a fraction of the size of Kind, because I just felt that I was doing something that I was meant to do, and it gave me so much meaning. And I just think it's really important. You were asking earlier, why would you not just focus on making money and then do philanthropy? Because imagine how much more powerful it is if what you do every day is having the impact or working towards a goal that you have. And if you can do it in a way that's sustainable and that can also be profitable, it's just such a cool way to do things, that you can have both a social impact and make a living, and also provide for your team to do that.
Great. So let's take some questions. There are microphones over here.
Yeah, there's a microphone over there, a microphone over there, and if folks want to go to the mic and just get right to your question, we'd like to have as much interaction that Daniel was referencing as possible. So why don't we start right there? And thanks for being brave and being the first question asker.
No problem. Thank you for your talk. It was very...
Yeah, that was very kind of you to do that. You're awesome.
Here.
By the way, if you ask questions, would you mind just telling us your name and 4 words about yourself, who you are, why you're here?
Or 5.
That's fine too.
Yeah, no problem. My name is Colin Ford Mattis. I'm a JD student, first year at the law school here, from Brooklyn, New York. Really interested in social entrepreneurship.
This is what happens to law students, by the way.
Well, actually, this is very related to my question. So I read in your bio that you actually have a JD. And what in that legal training or legal experience do you find most helpful in your work as a social entrepreneur? And second question, which is sort of the converse, what do you wish you would have availed yourself of more while you were pursuing your studies that would have been of particular help now that you're a social entrepreneur?
I remember that I applied to law school, and I applied to NYU, And I remember they had a phenomenal social, what's it called? I don't remember the name of it because it was 24 years ago. Sorry, I'm kind of old, 25 years ago. But I remember I ended up going to Stanford Law, but I was very close to coming to NYU because of their program that really was very socially meaningful from what I recall. I do think that law helps you think more analytically. I mean, you hear how I talk like a nerd with like the net happiness aggregator thing, and so maybe that comes from that, or maybe because just I'm a weirdo. I don't know, but I do think that law helps you think critically about issues, and I think that's a huge gift. Every day, it helps me. Today we had one of our trading partners, and we were negotiating some terms with him, and without a doubt, it helped me a lot to understand a lot of the building blocks and concepts. And if you're running a business, a lot of the stuff that you come in contact is going to help you. I took a couple business courses when I was in law school. I enjoyed them. I guess I would recommend taking a couple. My recommendation is just for you to just find what makes you passionate and for you to take the courses that you enjoy the most. And don't think too much about what's going to make me advance. Think about what am I passionate, what am I enjoying, what interests me the most. And if there's a course that you find fascinating or a topic that you find fascinating, and in whatever school that may be, just do that, because it will absolutely help you. I mean, I do stuff for peace in the Middle East, and you know what? It helped me build a movement, and then that helped me with building the kind movement. But when I did it, I wasn't thinking it's going to help me with my business. So I think whatever turns you on, if it's psychology, you're going to end up finding a way to channel that in your business. If it's anthropology, it's going to help you understand human beings. If it's any discipline, I think, can help you. Just give everything you've got to it and just soak it up. It's my advice.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next,
if you don't ask stuff, then Chana is going to ask more. So.
So I have a question. You had mentioned the growing popularity of the B Corporation. And for those folks who aren't aware, this is a huge sea change in how a company can do business. And the short version is, if you decide to incorporate as a B Corporation, your corporation bylaws has to have the following statement. Our primary responsibility is to our shareholders, comma, and related stakeholders. And that's a huge difference, because if you're a CEO of a company, you are now able to take stakeholders' concerns into account, and you don't have to worry about being sued and losing your house if you decide to not behave in an unethical, legal, profitable way. It's a major, major shift in how a business can behave and can have a dramatic impact on business behavior. Have you considered incorporating as a B Corporation, and why or why not?
I haven't, because I own the majority of the company and I know what I'm doing and how I'm doing, and if people try to sue me, I will kick their butts. But no, I'm joking. But no, I haven't, because we did it that way. Had that existed when I was incorporating, I probably would have done it. Is a B Corp now available everywhere, or just in certain states?
It's 18 states, right, which is separate from be certified. Right, so you can sign up to be certified, which basically says to the public, here are these standards that I'm adhering to. You're still retaining whatever your traditional limited liability status, or however you've decided to incorporate. But the actual B Corporation, it's 18 states, including Delaware, which is fascinating. And that was a big win for the B Corp. Yeah, that's a very big win. I agree. Big win for the B Corp movement.
I totally agree. I don't see that there's any harm in doing it. I would just say in my perspective, it's very hard to divorce them, because having a social meaning, if it's authentic, if it's done well, should also do well for your business. So yes, sometimes there's certain decisions, but for the most part, overwhelmingly, when we're behaving with that global vision, I think we're also helping the bottom line. I just gave you an example, a really cool way that we're sampling product because people are trying the kind bars, but I think they help one another, because I think, imagine if one way that you try a kind bar is, here's a kind bar, try it, it's a cold act. And as an alternative, it's like, hey, here's a kind bar, and now that I've done a kind act for you, pass it on. Or, wow, that's so kind that you did that. This is your reward, and then you can also reward others. It's so much warmer and more authentic and more beautiful for you to be celebrating kindness and inspiring kindness. And at the same time, you're accomplishing your sampling objectives. Somebody's going to object to the fact that we're inspiring kindness. They don't know what they're doing, because it is helping build the business. Even if I maintain the number one reason why people buy our products is because they're delicious and helpful, the social mission that we have builds so much goodwill for us.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Brownridge. I'm a part-time student at the Wagner program here at NYU, and I'm a co-founder of an organization called Ignite Good. And I just wonder how, when you speak about kindness, how is it that more traditional service sort of fits into that world? Like, what's the intersection there? And then what role do you think sort of service has in the social impact space in terms of being of service to someone or doing service work?
I am not sure that I'm understanding your question. Can you just clarify that a little bit?
So I guess I work with young people who are of service in a variety of ways, either with nonprofits, social enterprises, and I'm just wondering, what does being of service or doing traditional service work what's the role that plays in sort of this larger social impact space? Like, you've chosen to go more social enterprise, but what role does service and traditional philanthropy how does it all intersect, and what impact can it have in your mind?
I'll try to answer the way I think I can answer. I'm not 100% sure that I'll answer what you're looking for me to answer. But when I think about issues like homelessness, or like children's services, or like making peace in the Middle East, and I try to come up with creative ways to, what I think there is already the socials there, right? They're a building block of society that's so critical. So what I try to do there is imbue in them people sometimes say business practices, but I think it's more an entrepreneurial way of thinking and creative, innovative, out-of-the-box ideas that can help you have the ant philosophy there too. So is there a way that you can accomplish those service goals with the ant philosophy in mind? Is there a way that you can adopt the ant philosophy into the service stuff you do? For example, for me, budgets are not the optimal way to do planning. Whether it's in a business or in a nonprofit, whether it's service or product related, budgets are necessary because as the organization gets big, you need to give each department something. But the curse of the budgets is that then people think they have to use up their budgets, and or they either have scarcity and they can't do something that actually could be self-liquidating. And so I think that instead of budgets, if you help people think with the ant philosophy and say, think like an owner, imagine this is coming out of your pocket. Is there a more resourceful way for you to do it? Whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, whether you're in the service space or in the CPG space or whatever space, if you transcend the budgetary way of thinking and adopt an ownership way of thinking, an entrepreneurial way of thinking, and adopt it with resourcefulness, oftentimes you're able to get something done and save the money or whatever. Like sometimes people say, oh, should I do this or should I do that? If it's something that you're meant to do, do it. First decide you're going to do it, then do it at the lowest cost possible. Then figure out how to do it at the best terms. But don't say, oh, it's not in my budget, I can't do it. If it makes sense to do it, then you have to do it. You just need to figure out how to do it at the lowest cost possible. That's, for me, entrepreneurial thing and the ant philosophy can apply into brainstorming about the programs themselves. How can you accomplish them in a more creative way? How can you become more efficient about them? It can apply to the way you market. It can apply the way you fundraise. It can apply to every aspect. It's like, okay, this is what we're doing. What are the assumptions that are holding us back? And think through them. And they're like, do these assumptions really hold true? Is there a way that we could do it more creatively? Did I get that a little bit or no?
Yeah, no, that helps. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. I have, my background is entertainment, comedy, and entrepreneurial. Keyword, I'm trying to make a joke with like poor and entrepreneur, but there's something there, but I don't know. I don't have, if anyone's a joke, let me know.
Sounds very cool.
So I have kind of a two-part question. You kind of gave insight with your philosophy with, I guess, hiring, and but your number one, how do you attribute that? I don't know, yeah, like, how'd you do that? So maybe in terms of strategic planning, was there something? And then my second question, should I wait? Can you remember?
Your first question was,
Yeah.
how did we achieve a #1 market position?
Yeah. Like, was it in your strategic planning? Like, what?
There was a Fortune magazine article, or CNN Fortune article that just came out earlier this week about us. And the reporter that wanted to talk to me wanted to find out why we have such a phenomenal distribution platform that is doing so well. And I wasn't trying to be coy when I answered that it's not the distribution, it's the product that leads. When you're obsessive about quality and you decide you're going to do the best you can be and not cut no corners and deliver the best quality product, everything follows, because we have the highest productivity in the space. Like, our product sells faster than any other product. And because it sells faster, then the stores stock more of it, and eventually you get more and more shelf space and you get into more places. So the distribution, of course, we have a phenomenal team that works at the stores and that promotes and stuff. The distribution follows the great product. And so maybe that begs the question, why do we have the best product? I think it's that we're obsessive about really trying to do the very best we can and about not cutting any corners and just stuff. It's an ownership mentality where every one of our team members is a stock owner, and we have very open and transparent communications. And I think all of that creates a broth of hard work ethic and a commitment to excellence. And I think in anything you do, if you do the very, 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 very best you can, I think you stand more odds that you will do that. And by the way, it depends how you define your market. We're the #1 in healthy snack space. We're the #1 in faster growing the nutritional bar space. But as a snack overall, we're not #1. I mean, you know, Frito-Lay's billions of dollars. And we compete not just with nutritional bars. We compete, you replace a fruit or a trail mix or a yogurt or a piece of cheese or a savory snack or a candy bar with a healthier snack bar like kind. And so it depends how you define the framework. And I think the last thing I would answer to that question is, I think it's a lot about being self-critical and introspective and always being comfortable criticizing yourself. And when you're doing something and you think you're doing it right, that's the hardest way for you to learn, because you're not getting the feedback. When you make mistakes, it's awesome for you to get feedback on how to do it better. So you need to embrace that constructive criticism for you to become stronger. And every day in our company, we try to encourage our team to think that way and to be self-critical.
So that's kind of the second question. Can you, if you can think of a specific
Which,
example?
by the way, was my other thing is that I read minds, so I knew that was going to be your second question.
Save the comedy for, no, I'm just kidding. Is there a specific example of a mistake that you made, like where you really, it was this serious situation that you learned from it, like that you could like tell us?
So many. I mean, the obsession with commitment to quality came from a mistake I made early on in PeaceWorks, where we started coming up with sun-dried tomato spread, olive spread, and basil pesto, and they were doing really well. And then I decided to launch a few more because, you know, they were doing well. So we launched a couple more items, and we had 7 spreads, and they were doing fine. And then I called Yoel and Abdullah, and like, we need to do more. We need to do more. People are liking our products. So, and I forgive myself because I was 25, 26 years old, and just hungry and not thinking about this. And so they're like, well, we've run out of ideas. I'm like, keep giving ideas. Come on, let's do it. And so they started coming up with like sweet and spicy teriyaki pepper spread made by Israelis and Palestinians. And I'm like, it made no sense. We had a teriyaki pepper spread made by Israelis. It made no sense. And to be sincere, that product, our sun-dried tomato, I'll put against any other sun-dried tomato, it was and still is the best It's not a brand, it's called Meditalia, you can go buy it. But it's delicious. But that sweet and spicy teriyaki pepper spread was really bad. And, you know, I was dumb enough to not, I knew it in my gut, but I'm like, okay, somebody's gonna like it because, you never know. And so we put it on the shelves. And
it's the spaghetti theory of business. Just throw it at the wall, see what sticks.
Right, but it's a horrible way of doing business. And a lot of people actually do business that way. And what happened is that we had people that had tried our sun-dried tomato one and they loved it, and they tried the basil and they loved it. And suddenly they trusted us. They gave us their trust. So then they went and tried the teriyaki pepper spread. And they didn't love us anymore. And they stopped buying the teriyaki pepper, but they stopped buying the brand overall. And I had a couple years where we suffered because of expanding and not maintaining that obsessive commitment with excellence, with quality. And I swore to myself that that wouldn't happen again. So with Kind, even though our brokers and our team was like clamoring, we need to develop more products, we won't launch anything unless we feel that it's going to exceed expectations and be better than the bar. And it's a high bar, but unless we feel that we're going to be fulfilling the brand promise and always be obsessive about the quality and always make the product better than people are expecting, we won't do it. And I think that is the key, to obsess about delivering on the brand promise, never to cut corners, never try to think that you can do a shortcut. Because you'll do it in the short term, but you're going to lose consumers' loyalty. And on the other side, if you are obsessive about that, then consumers can trust you and will trust you as you expand to other categories and stuff. But you don't expand to other categories just because you want to be in other categories. You expand where you think that you can deliver something new and different and innovative. I've made a promise to myself that we're never going to be a Me Too company that just because somebody's doing something interesting, we need to be there. I just think that's such a dangerous way for you to grow your brand, because then you're the Me Too company and you're just trying to copy other brands. And I just don't admire that, and I don't think consumers admire that. I think consumers want you to be the best you can be and be who you can be. And you don't need to be everything to everybody. But what you promise to be, you need to deliver on that brand promise. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for coming. My name is Kate Roslin. I study educational theater. I was prior a professional actor, and I decided to make the transition because I want to work developing a transformative arts curriculum that really gives kids more mindful awareness and imaginative development opportunities to be more of their authentic self, a lot like what you were saying. And what my question is I have a lot of people coming into fruition with a lot of great talents and a lot of great ways where they can contribute to what I'm doing. But how do you, when you're first starting out, keep your team that you're creating organized and give them a certain amount of power without compromising yourself or leaving them feeling like any of their talents are not being seen or neglected?
Wow. Come, sit down. Let's talk a few hours. Well, that's a very complex question. General pointers I can give you only. Build an open communications policy where you encourage your team to communicate openly with you, and you communicate openly. Give feedback directly. I think the bigger problem in society is that managers are uncomfortable criticizing people. You need to learn how to give feedback. First you praise and then you share where people need to improve. So just open communications. A general rule of thumb is that you need to trust your team to lead, and you need to give them areas where they can lead rather than micromanaging. It doesn't always work, and it depends on what field and stuff. Some stuff you need to oversee. But in general, if you empower people to take responsibility over an assignment, then they will deliver more than if you're just giving them a specific, narrowly defined task. Gabe, do you want to help me here? That was a tough question.
One thing that you just said that definitely resonates with me is this notion of giving your staff, and my staff is welcome to stand up and disagree with me, but really giving your staff ownership over something that's important. It's not just this, as you said, do this tiny little task. This is your show. This is critical to our larger mission. This is how it relates to our larger mission, right? And if it's a project that's already underway, this is where the project is now. This is where you should get it to. And give them the resources that they need to do it, but be able to trust them enough to get out of the way and really let it. So I think it really does come down to giving the ownership over real things. And
a very important point he shared, give them the vision of where they can go and how they're, it's a really good point what Gabe shared, that if you share with them how they're part of the big picture and share with them a vision of where they can go, I think that's how you maximally motivate people, when they feel that they have ownership and they're part of a bigger vision, which is, by the way, another reason why having a social meaning and a purpose, not just be the #1 brand in making the most. By the way, making products that are healthy and delicious is also part of our social mission, because you're fighting diabetes and obesity, and you don't know how many testimonials we get from consumers that tell us they lost 70 pounds. We never set out to become a diet bar, a weight prevention bar. We set out to let people eat healthfully with nutrition, but it certainly is that if you eat products that you displace empty calories and you're eating healthy snacks with ingredients you can see on bananas, nuts that have the good types of fats and that satiate you and nourish you, you're actually also fulfilling that mission of helping fight obesity and diabetes. But part of the reason why social enterprise makes sense is because it imbues your team with meaning. It makes people fight so much harder because you're trying to reinvent the way people see business or the way people do whatever you guys are setting out to do.
Thank you. One thing to add to that, Wendy Kopp, the founder of Teach for America, has been part of our speaker series a number of times. And she always shares her point of view that an organization can only grow as far as the talent of the staff will take them. So it's also a recognition that you as a head of an organization can only do so much. And you really need to find the talented people that are going to be able to take it to the next level. Otherwise, the organization will not grow in the direction that we want it to grow. Take that question.
Hello, I'm Kayana Jean-Philippe. I'm studying nutrition and dietetics at NYU Steinhardt, and I'm interested in the nutritional component of the business. So what was the process like working with nutritionists and choosing the right ingredients, conducting tests to prove that Kind bars are nutritionally more beneficial than other brands, and then how did you tie this into your social mission?
So when we first conceived the product, we didn't have the budgets or the know-how to do that, to be honest. We just came up with products where we felt were nourishing. And then we did the nutritional test that, we paid for the studies and we put that stuff. As we started growing up, we started realizing the nutritionist community is vital. And they started coming to us because they love the product. And I think we were lucky, to some degree that, we knew that nuts and fruits are helpful, but I think we benefited from, I don't know if you saw the Harvard study that came out that if you eat nuts, you will live longer. I would have never imagined that you could make such claims. We didn't make those claims. Harvard School of Medicine just did that study. And so we got approached by the Yale School of Medicine. Dr. Katz wanted to prove that healthy snacking is actually a good way to prevent weight gain. So we donated our Kind bars and made a modest contribution, but the study was self-driven by them, and they actually showed that if you do Kind bars a day, it may help you prevent weight gain. Because again, the premise of Dr. Katz is that if you're eating nutrition-rich products that keep you satiated, keep you full longer, then you're not going to be eating empty calories that spike up your blood sugars and have you hungry a few minutes later. So we work with nutritionists very closely now. We have a whole network of in different concentric circles, 50 nutritionists that are, I don't remember what the title is, but that they work with us in very deep ways. But we have about several thousand nutritionists in our database. Juliana, my assistant, warned me not to give out my email because each time I do, then she's the one that has to deal with it. But if you go to our website, and if you're a nutritionist, you can sign up to get our newsletters and to join us. Please do. And if you go to my blog or to our website, and I'm going to cheat and find a way for you to get to me, on our blog, you can send me an email, and I'll put you in touch with our team that works with nutrition. So you can learn a little bit about what we do with nutritionists. And while I'm at it, so I don't forget, we have 47 job openings at Kind. We're growing very fast and having a difficult time growing. So if anybody's interested, please go to our website, kindsnacks.com, and find there's all the listing for all of the positions. I have no idea what positions may fit, what skills you have, but just go through if you're interested. And there's 47 positions open in a variety of fields. So if you're interested, please consider us. Thank you.
I think he's been waiting longer, though.
Give her a Kind card.
Thank you. My name is Chris Swan. I'm in the Langone part-time MBA program, and I also work for a nonprofit, so we're always thinking about funding. So I would like to hear more about the initial startup stage. What was your funding strategy? Who did you talk to? Was it institutional or individuals? And what was your pitch and your approach?
I don't think I can give you too much advice here because I was doing it all the wrong way. My initial startup approach is that I didn't have an approach. I had some savings from my law school job. I had worked for a few summers, and my dad lent me $10,000, and I had about $10,000 that I had saved. And the approach was survive on Cheerios. The approach was live in a studio that served as my apartment and my office and my meeting gathering place. I made sure that everything I did made money. I didn't have the luxury not to. And so when those gift baskets, didn't get sold at the beginning, I was sweating. It was tough. I had to then go to street fairs and try to sell them, and I had to walk up and down the streets. And I didn't raise funds. Now, the luck that I have is that because I didn't do that and I didn't raise funds till much, much later, once Kind was relatively successful, I own a big part of the company. But there are probably smarter ways to do it than the way I did it when I was just for 15 years in no man's land, like in the wilderness, making a lot of mistakes. And if you decide to start your own venture, just be prepared that there will be days when you will cry and when you will suffer and when you will question your decisions. And at the end of the day, it'll still be the best experience ever because it's your baby and because you believe in it. But don't go there thinking, oh, I can do this and then not work as hard, or it's all going to be smooth sailing. Don't go. It's not for everybody. That's the truth. The truth is it's not for everybody. You have to have the staying power. I highly recommend it to everybody that can do it. And I think Chana had said about the advice. I'll give you one more piece of advice that I think is very important. Separate the creative brainstorming phase and what I call the research and development phase from the evangelical, I will win at no cost phase. It's very important to separate those two. First,
at all costs. You'll win at all costs.
The win at all costs. So first, question your assumptions. Make sure that your idea makes sense, because a lot of ideas actually don't make sense. And people might not tell you because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So do research online. If you think there's no competition, you have not done enough research because there's nothing out there that there's no competition. Think carefully about your ideas. Ask people for feedback. Test them. Find ways to test them. And then really, really be skeptical. And be comfortable walking away from it if it doesn't make sense. Don't feel that at that stage you need to win at all costs. At that stage you need to make sure it makes sense. And you will save yourself a lot of headaches if you don't end up going on a journey that makes no sense. If you've done all that research and really, really thought critically about that process and have checked what the competition is, have checked whether you got what it takes, whether you got the spirit to fight, and whether it makes sense to you, and whether you tried everything, you're certain now, you've convinced yourself, then at that point, you switch. You press a switch in yourself, and that's it. You cannot question yourself ever again, and you must win at all costs. And then you cannot question yourself. You cannot let anybody bring you down. You just need to have the staying power to win. But remember that first phase. If you don't do that first phase, you might end up screwing yourself for many years. So do that first phase, really question it. And if you're certain, then it's just as important that once you convince yourself that you're going to go for this, that you don't stop, that you don't let anybody stop you. You just need to have that staying power, because a lot of times, you know, Kind exploded. But I'm telling you, the year before Kind, we could have closed shop just like this. The situation was so hairy. I had a $24,000 salary after 10 years of having left my law school job, you know, a much nicer Wall Street opportunity. And I can paint you the picture, but the main point is, it was right there. It was right around the corner. And it finally just, you know, I learned my lessons and I pulled it through. But it took 10 years of mistakes before I had that success. And so.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Thanks. Maybe they both ask him at the same time. Don't be so mean, Chana. The power of and. You can ask, and then I'll answer quickly.
NYU Stern, studying finance and environmental studies. So, I mean, it was actually going off his question, so maybe you could count both of us as one. But how did you really grow your business? Because now you look at Kind and it's enormous, and it started out, as you said, like with just an idea. So how were you able to grow it and really make it so successful?
Okay, I'll answer it in 1 second. You can ask your question.
I'm Lisbeth Cardoso from a startup, Tiny Milkshake Media. I'm the founder of a startup, Tiny Milkshake Media.
Tiny Milkshake Media?
Tiny Milkshake Media.
Cool name.
That's exactly the reaction I was trying to get when I thought of that name. So basically, we're an agency startup, and we're basically focused on email branding and social media marketing, devoted to purposeful venture, stewardship, and doing social good in the world. And I'm just, as a new startup that's just launching, what's your advice to somebody, to a budding new social entrepreneur, in attracting and finding clients like you who are aligned with our values?
All right, I'm going to answer them together.
Okay.
So when we started Kind, we came up with an awesome product. We knew it was awesome, but remember, I had been many years in the wilderness. And the interesting thing about business is that when your business might be growing, but if you're not financed, you might not have money. You might be profitable, and you might be growing, and you might not have money, because what happens is, let's say you're selling $1 million, and you grow and you double your sales, and now you can sell 2 million. But you need to have a lot more inventory. And even if you go and you sell your first $1 million, and you make, I'm just going to invent numbers, $200,000 in profit. But out of those $200,000, you might need to pay half of that to New York State, New York City, and the United States government of America. So you're left with $100,000, and that $100,000 you probably can't keep for yourself or to pay yourself salary, because you need to put it in more inventory, in more accounts receivable, working capital, and stuff. So it's a very big danger when you don't have money, and it's just as big danger that you end up having a scarcity mentality. So we already had a great product, and our sampling budget the year before I brought in investors was $800. $800, I'm not kidding, it was $800. It was 2008. And we sold in 2008, I think it was $13 to $15 million. So our sampling budget was non-existent. I saw sampling as a cost center. I wanted people to just buy the product. It's delicious, buy it. I didn't want to have to sample it. My investors, I was self-critical, and I welcomed them teaching me, and they taught me a lot. And they said, now you have the resources, start sampling. So the first 2009, our sampling budget was $800,000. We went from $800 to $800,000. This year, our sampling budget is like $15 million. So we want Kind bars. 9 out of 10 people that try a Kind bar become a Kindaholic. 9 out of 10 people. So 9 out of 10 people will buy it again and refer it to friends. So it was idiotic that I was not investing in sampling. And now we just sample like crazy for people to try the product because we really, really believe in the power of the product to the thing. So how we grew so fast, we started like really, really letting people try the product and reach them. I think it's the #1 biggest contributor to it, besides commitment to excellence and quality standards and innovation and being obsessive about the AND philosophy. So for example, we created a line called Nuts and Spices where you can get 5 grams of sugar or less and done in a natural way without any sugar alcohols, without anything artificial. It took us 2 years to develop that product. It was very, very hard. But the AND philosophy at play was we didn't want to sacrifice having to put sugar alcohols, but we wanted to give for people that really want to control the sugar intake a product that could fulfill that. And most of the sugar in those products is coming from the almonds and from the nuts, which are more than 50% of the sugar in our Kind Nuts and Spices line is the nuts. And what we basically did is we removed fruit has sugars. There's nothing wrong with fruit. It's good for you. It's important. But if somebody really wanted to control the sugar intake, we gave them spices instead of fruit. And that helped us lower the sugar content in a very natural way. And then we created the dark chocolate nuts and sea salt. And most of the sweetening of the chocolate and the dark chocolate nuts and sea salt is from chicory fiber, which is a good source of fiber and it's got almost no calories. So, but it took us 2 years to develop that product. It was just being obsessive, and so it's commitment to excellence, getting out of the scarcity mentality and starting to sample. So you asked the question, I didn't tie it to you, but that's the point. The point is, first test everything very, very, very carefully. Make sure that you've got that magic sauce or potion or value proposition, that you have something great that people want. If and when you know that your conversion rates are right, you make a presentation. If you make a presentation, you're not getting the business, stop making presentations. Start figuring out how you can do it better. Maybe make presentations you'll practice, or maybe do presentations but to your friends. But once it starts working, that's when you want to start investing in really reaching out. And sometimes we as entrepreneurs are very hungry and we want to go and get that look. We can't wait. Sometimes it's important to wait and not go to the biggest customers till you really, really know that you're ready. We didn't go to Walmart till we really knew that we were going to win. We just started Costco a month ago, and they knocked on the door for a couple of years, but we were not ready to play that game, and we were not ready to give them the margins or the prices they wanted, and it took us a lot of negotiation, a lot of staying power. And so when you do things, you know you're going to win. You have to have that approach. So take your time. Research it thoroughly so that you put your best foot forward when you get that chance, because if you're going to get that door opened, you might only get that door opened once.